Hello and good evening to you all. So first of all, I wanted to bring all up to date. The news is that my mother came out of hospital on Saturday, and I got down to Cornwall Saturday evening. She's still very frail. There's She's supposed to be meeting with hearing from a cardiac surgeon to see if she would be able, she was strong enough to withstand a heart operation. And but the big problem is that the effect of missing her grandchildren is the thing that is really pulling her down and lowering her spirits, which unfortunately it's not something I can do anything about quickly. But I want to thank everybody for their kind words and well wishes over the past few days. I really do appreciate it, and thank you. So what I'm going to do in this video is I'm going to talk a little bit about the United Nations Special Rapporteur. She's a Jordanian woman called Reem Al-Salem, and about 5-6 months ago she held a news conference in Geneva. She was talking about parental alienation as being fake, as being a smokescreen for abusive men to get access and unsupervised contact with their children. Now, I'm not saying that that doesn't happen, but she submitted a report in the summer of last year, it looks like, to the United Nations on this subject. And it's that I'm going to talk about this evening. Now, her report does look at situations like this where there is disputed claim over custody of children and how these things are handled all over the world. She seems to cover places like Iraq, Russia, Italy, Mexico, Brazil, Australia, New Zealand, the UK and Ireland. So she's covered a lot of ground. Now, I can't speak to how these things are handled in countries like Iraq or Russia or Mexico, but I'll come back to that. I can only speak to what I know about from personal experience or from talking to people from those from certain countries who tell me their stories. Now, on her own admission, she's worked with an organisation called, in collaboration, she says, with a platform of independent expert mechanisms on the elimination of discrimination and violence against women. Now, her research is about abuse of men is confined to one passing reference to a paper by a woman called Marianne Hester, published in 2013, and it's called Who Does What to Whom. Now, that is the only time she has ever talked about the issues faced by men in abusive relationships. That's it. So that should give you an idea of what's to come. Her theme is very much about women being punished for objecting to their kids having unsupervised time with fathers accused of or guilty of domestic abuse. And again, I'm not saying that this doesn't happen. I'm mindful of the story of Laura Corkill up in Whitehaven a few years ago. She fled domestic violence. She sought help from social services in Cumbria, and they swooped in, took the baby as soon as he was born, and gave little Leland James Corkill to a woman in Barrow for fostering, and the woman was Laura Cook, who killed him when he was 10 months old. So to be clear, we're not blind to the issues raised by Dr. Aslim. Unfortunately, she seems to unwilling to acknowledge the issues impacting men. She talks about judges dismissing the impact of domestic abuse and domestic violence. She's talked about studies done in Brazil and Italy and Iraq, and that judges there are regarding domestic violence as something that has happened in the past and is not relevant to the facts of a divorce case or a family court hearing in the present. She says that, like so many people, she declares that accusations of parental alienation are simply devices used by fathers as a smokescreen to mask the fact that they are actually the abusive partner. but she's made no effort to analyse any of the cases that she's cited. It's just a blanket statement saying, making this observation, but she's made no analysis of any of the cases to see whether, well, was the mother lying? To be fair to her, she's conducting a study. She's got to rely on the sources that she analyses to do the study for her. That part of it for her. So I get that. Now, although Ms. Aslim is talking about mothers as victims of abuse, in part 18 she does make one observation which is 100% true, which is the consequences of biased custody decisions can be catastrophic, which is actually quite true. And when you take that quote in its isolation, it sounds like she's being very balanced. When you read it, read it in the context of the paragraph, no, it's not, because she's talking exclusively about women as victims of domestic abuse, trying to protect their children from being forcibly returned to an abusive father. Again, we're not saying that that doesn't happen, but her paper suggests that this is the only thing that parental alienation is used for. She talks about decisions where children have been harmed and courts have put them at the mercy of abusive fathers, but doesn't acknowledge stories like that of Daniel Hodgson Green. One of a number of cases where provably abusive mothers have killed the children, like Daniel Hodgson Green was, when their lies were exposed, and rather than return the children to the father, they killed them. Now, in section 6, relevant international regional standards practice, she talked about the Committee on the Elimination of Discrimination, called for states to ensure gender stereotyping is eliminated. But this seems to be only with regard to gender bias against women. She doesn't address the biases experienced against men. The fact that Ms. Aslim seems to focus on ending violence against women and girls, not without any mention of abuse of boys, demonstrates an alarming hypocrisy. Taken out of context, phrases like there's a failure to address IPV against children in custody rights in a violation of the rights of the child sounds very balanced. But if you take it in context with the rest of what she's saying, she's not being balanced at all. She talks about female victims to the exclusion of male victims. That in itself is a breach of United Nations and EHCR articles on discrimination. And as fathers, we are bitterly aware that our children are being abused, brainwashed, and believing that their fathers are monsters, whereas we're being denied any viable opportunity to defend ourselves against any such allegations. Now, this is where we start to run into the dishonesty of what this woman is saying. So I will come back to that in the next video. I do apologise for having to do this in 2 parts. Please bear with me, and I'll be back to you in the next video. Thank you.